Good morning. Today we're going to talk about this book. It's the Four Agreements. I've talked to a couple of you that have already read it. Have anybody in the audience read it before? My husband carries this in his Jeep every day to work so he won't forget them. He says they're hard work, a lot of hard work. Anyway, the author said, everything we do is based on agreements we have made, agreements with ourselves, with other people, with God, with life. The most important agreements are the ones that we make for ourselves. In these agreements, we tell ourselves who we are and what we're all about. One single agreement would be okay, but the problem is we have lots of these through fear, and it diminishes our energy and our self-worth. So the first one is to be impeccable with your words. You need to speak with integrity, say only what you mean, avoid words about yourself that are negative, or gossip about others. Use the power of your word in the direction of truth and love. In unity, we believe that there's first mind, which comes from the divine mind. Then there's an idea, but then there is an expression. And that's what the word is, like logos in the Bible, is that when we say things, they become real. You become expressed. And we've all said words about ourselves, right? I'm not smart enough. I'm fat. You know, I did something wrong. How terrible of me. I can remember I used to work at what now I call corporate America. I worked at America West, I worked at Circle K, and I worked at PetSmart. And they always told me I wasn't technical enough. And I said, well, if I have a staff of engineers and programmers, and I know how to manage them well, why do I have to be that technical? Well, one day we were having a problem, and I have to behave myself to stay where I'm supposed to be, which is hard for me. Anyway, we were in this big conference room at PetSmart at the corner of I-17 and 101. So we were having a technical problem. So I had engineers from all the walks of life, Unix and the mainframe and the PCs. We had PCs back then too. But anyway, and we were having an issue. Well, all these guys in this room knew their stuff. But the problem was they didn't know what happened when they threw it over the fence. They didn't have any idea once it got to the other guy what happens. They talked for 2 hours, did not come up with a conclusion, and we finally just all left. And in those kind of meetings too, I would just multiply how many people are in the room. So let's say there's 20. They probably make $75 an hour, 150 each. Can you think how much money we wasted at the company? And nobody knew what to do. Well, I'll tell you what, that's technical. I hope that we all know what we do, because once it goes wrong, you know, you talked about your hosting server. I had, at work, I was using a web fax in the cloud. It was doing just fine. Well, then at the end of July, it just quit. And so it called up technical support. And I said, when's it going to be fixed? We don't know. We don't know what's wrong. I was talking to a guy at work. He said, Joe, they're all robots now. The lights are really out. So finally, after a month of waiting for him, I found another web server for faxing for just 50 cents more. But I kept saying, if this was my system, I would have had it fixed. I would have locked him in a room and not let him go home and go to sleep until it got fixed. But I guess that doesn't happen anymore. Anyway, words are really important. And I like the story of Jesus when he calmed the storm. And I find the Gospels interesting. There's Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And believe it or not, the first Gospel wasn't even written till Jesus was dead 80 or 100 years. And the Gospels were written to certain audiences. Like Luke, for example, wrote to the Gentiles, and Matthew was a Jew. So anyway, so it talks about being out in the boat. Jesus had preached all day, so he was exhausted. So he crawled up in the boat and went to sleep. Well, then the winds came up and it became very rough. And the other disciples were really getting scared, like, oh my God, we're going to die. So they woke Jesus up and they said, it's really rough in this boat. Jesus stands up and he rebukes. I had to look up that word, which meant he harshly talked to the waters and they calmed down. So words are very important. So maybe think of a word or two that you use, that you talk about yourself or you talk about others, and jot it down. And then decide, is that really true? Is it negative or is it positive? So just take a few minutes and think. I know I make you work. I'm sorry. Okay, the second agreement is don't take anything personally. Nothing others do is because of you. My husband always says, this is my movie and I want to get it right. But, we are just a reflection. And what happens up here is our thinking of what people are doing, and you can be immune to their opinions and actions, and you don't have suffering, needless suffering. It reminds me of just like all the news going around right now. It's just so busy. And it's hard not to get bombarded with it. It's not like you walk up and turn the TV off in the old days. You've got the cell phone, you've got your laptop. It's just all bouncing at you. You need to think about, is this really happening? And do I need to take it personally? And does it affect me? So don't take anything personally. We think we're responsible for everything. The only thing we're responsible is for ourselves. And others are going to have their own opinion, right? Their own movies playing over here while you're playing your movie. So don't take things personal. When you think that there's something strong going on, take and look at your anger, your jealousy, and address what's going on. And then let it go. Let it go. I have a funny story to tell you. At least I think it's funny. I live in Lakeside, which is way over on the east side of the state. And I work in a small town called Taylor. And I work in a mortuary. I think I've shared that with some of you. Well, the guy that I work with, the manager, he has 2 teenage daughters in high school. Poor Bill, right? 2 teenage daughters in high school. And his wife called him up and she was all upset. I said, what happened, Bill? Well, his oldest daughter went into Bash's with her boyfriend. And I don't know if it's her boyfriend or not. I guess it goes back and forth every day. But anyway, they bought an ice cream cone and they started talking. And they walked out of the store without paying for it. So you know what happens next? The Bash's manager calls up the cops in town. Now, if this was in Phoenix, the cops would have laughed him in the face going, I'm not going to go talk to 2 teenagers that are sitting on the tailgate of the pickup in Bash's eating their ice cream cones. And so anyway, the cop went and talked to the kids, told them to come back in. They came back in and paid. But I call this herd mentality. My husband works at Lowe's. He's taken all these classes about how not to chase shoplifters off to the, outside the store and everything. But I'm thinking, it's two kids. It's an ice cream cone. Couldn't the clerk have said, are you going to pay for this here? And of course, she's a teenager. She was just devastated. And then they said, and don't come back to the store for a whole year. Isn't that just, it just cracks me up. But anyway, she has come past it now. I told her father to go talk to the store manager, and they said not a year, just a month or two. It's a small town, they remember everybody. But, to me, that's like marching down with a bunch of people, herd mentality, right? They could have made that so much simpler and not ruin that young lady's weekend. It's prom weekend, so I hope she's having fun. So anyway, so think of a situation. Oh, I wanted to tell you one other thing too. I had a situation where I had the HR manager. This was at America West. HR manager come up and she said, "You're prejudiced." I said, "What?" "That's the last thing I am." She said, "Well, you have a whole team of white men. You're prejudiced." Well, I didn't hire that team. I inherited it. But here the whole time, she's thinking, and she was Black, she was thinking that I was prejudiced. I'm glad she finally said something to me, because that's the last thing I am. So anyway, so think of a time when something happened where you took it personal, and write down if it was true or false, that situation. You took it personal, so you got all emotional about it. But was it true or false? Okay, agreement number 3, don't make assumptions. Find the courage to ask questions and express what you really want. Communicate with others as clearly as you can to avoid misunderstandings, sadness, and drama. Oh my gosh. And just one agreement, you can completely transform your life. So we have a tendency to make assumptions. We make assumptions about what we're doing, what we're thinking, what other people are doing. Even if we hear something and we don't understand it, we still make assumptions about it and pretend that we understand it. The way to keep yourself from assumptions is to ask questions. And if you don't understand, ask. The one I love to say is, tell me more. Somebody comes right up in your face and they're all upset. You say, tell me more. Tell me more. Well, by the time they tell you the whole story, all their emotion is deflated and they've gained clarity just by telling you something. So anyway, back to America West. This was in the 90s. So they had sent us to this, no, this was Circle K. Which one? No, it was PetSmart. I get them all mixed up now. It's a long time ago. Oh, I got to move again. Okay. Anyway, so they sent us to this class. And this class was, they're always training managers, how to be better managers. In fact, I even found out that once they sent them to a class, how to manage through intimidation. Can you imagine? You're supposed to build people up, and they trained them on how to intimidate people so they could get more work done. didn't make sense to me. So anyway, so I took this class, and the vice president, his name was Jesus. I did something to tick him off. To this day, I don't even remember what it was. In fact, there was one manager who got mad at me about something. I walked into his office and I said to him, if we were two guys, we'd go out in the parking lot and duke it up, beat each other up and be over with it. But anyway, so I had done something that he didn't like. And to this day, I know the people I work with, I called them up right now. They said they remember this. So I go in and I go, Jesus, I really would like you to explain to me, give me details about what I did so that I can't do it in the future and upset you. And he'd said this, believe it or not. He said, Jill, that's what you do all the time. You want specifics. It's like, yeah. So anyway, we would go on corporate trips and we'd dive down to these stores. And when you work at a retailer, the thing happens is the corporate jet takes off and lands. Well, once we get to the first store, they call each other up. You even deal with this too at Lowe's. They call each other up and go, there's corporate in town, you better behave yourselves. But every time we'd go, I said, well, we need to get to the specifics, and we'd all bust a gut. Yes, the specifics. So anyway, think about a time that you made an assumption. What was it like? Did you find out it was true? Or did you find out that maybe you had thoughts about other people that weren't anywhere near the truth? So think about something and jot down a few notes. All right. The fourth agreement is kind of a summation of the first three. It says, if you really try and you're always doing your best, then you're doing your best. When you overdo things, you need to refresh. We talk about this in Unity all the time, about taking self-care, making sure that you're prayed up and all that kind of stuff. Well, you need to take care of yourself. You need to eat right. And if you're really trying to do these four agreements, then you're doing okay. You're doing okay. So under any circumstance, simply do your best. And that will avoid self-judgment, self-abuse, and regret. One of the things that I do in my mortuary work, I call it my church, my service, is I sit there a lot of times and just hold sacred space. They're in the worst place in their life that they've ever been. And just sitting there and holding that space, not saying anything, not trying to fix it. You can't fix it, but it means so much to those people. I was at Safeway. I told this story last night. And if you're familiar with the White Mountains, there's Pine Top, Lakeside, Show Low, and then 25 miles is Taylor and Snowflake. So I was in the Safeway in Pine Top, which is near my house. And I was checking out, and the girl said to me, hi, Jill. I thought, oh, well, she picked up my name off my phone number because I typed it into the system. Next week, she checked me out again. I told you this was going to be hard. Anyway, and she said, hi, Jill again. I said, do you know me? She says, oh, yeah, you work at the mortuary. You've helped us out before. This was like 50 miles from where I work. Talk about having an effect on people. But anyway, the story I love in the Bible about doing your best is it's Jesus again. I love the stories in the New Testament. when I was coming up the hill or down the hill, I don't know, we came up from Phoenix, up the hill. I didn't realize that there's 6 stories in the Gospels about Jesus feeding. 4 of them are 5,000, and those are in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. But there's also 2 more stories, not too far after that, about feeding 4,000. So there's actually 6 stories in the Bible. But think about this. Jesus prayed to all these people and lifted them up, and now they're hungry. And he said to the disciples, he said, well, just send them to the villages in the area and have them go get something to eat. Jesus said, no. He said, we're going to feed them. And the disciples then thought Jesus had lost it, right? 2 fish, 5 loaves of bread, and I'm going to feed 5,000 people. So they brought the food up to Jesus, and Jesus is doing his best, right? He prays over that food. And you know what? They fed 5,000 or 4,000, whatever story you read, a lot of people. And when it was all done, they still had food left. That's about doing your best. So when a bunch of people come over to your house, and I have this, our son lives with us, and people will come over, you know, like, Mom, what are you making for supper? I've got 10 people here. What do? You just open up the freezer, thaw out some more meat, make some veggies, and you're done. They don't care. It's not Jack in the Box or McDonald's, right? So anyway, so in summary, the 4 agreements are: be impeccable with your word, don't take it personally, don't make assumptions, and always do your best. So have I maybe got somebody thinking that would like to share on one of these agreements, a situation or a thought?
I've got one.
Okay.
Okay, when I first moved to Phoenix, I moved from the East Coast. And this is my former mother-in-law. She was my former sister-in-law. And they're from Chicago area.
Area.
Anyway, I was from DC and went to school in Florida, so way back east, and come out here to Phoenix. And they lived here in Phoenix for quite some time. And back east, the hottest part of the day is noon. And I have this wonderful argument with this lovely lady here, it's my buddy, Yvonne, and I said, no, she goes, oh no, the hottest part of the day here is 4 o'clock. I said, how in the world can that be? The sun is overhead. And then I said, oh no, it's at 4 o'clock. And she was right. But we had this discussion, and it was the whole idea that I assumed that just because of where I live, and it was hottest part of the day where I live was at noon, and it would continue to get cooler like it does up here. You know how by 4 or 5 o'clock it's really starting to cool down. Not here, not in Phoenix. Oh no, it's stacking up that heat. Bloody awful by the time it's 4 o'clock. Yeah. So anyway, that was an assumption I had made, and I thought that was.
So that's why she lives in Cornville and I live in the White Mountains. We had it. I tell everybody, you know, they'll say that from Phoenix. I said, I was too, and I did my time, and I'm done. Anybody else? Someone else like to share? Yes.
Talking about assumptions, I moved into a place I didn't have a dryer, so I hung up my laundry on the deck, on one of those hold-up things. And somebody wrote to the management where I live that this bothered them. So, okay, I didn't do that, I did something else. I had somebody make me a screen so they could see it. I thought it was my roommate. He was kind of to himself, didn't talk very much, so it must be that guy. Well, later on, I thought it was somebody totally different. That I'd never even thought that would do that.
You know, everybody's got dirty laundry, right? Who else? Yes.
Okay, I had friends coming to visit me from California, And it was just the two of them, me and my little dog, and we did a lot of nice, calm, interesting things. And then I said that I wanted to come and visit them. And I assumed that they knew that I just wanted the same kind of visit, just them and me and the little dog. But she said, oh, well, I'll invite this person, and I'll invite my niece, and I'll invite your sister. And I went, no. But, you know, I should have realized that they didn't know what I wanted. I should have expressed it.
And then they would have not been so stressed out. Yeah, that's like the holidays. I go in the kitchen and I cook because I like to cook. I expect everybody to like it. Well, last Christmas, they came up. My back hurt so bad, I couldn't even enjoy dinner with them. So I made the assumption, right? Well, I got to make the big meal. I should have kept it simple. I should have sent him out to the grill for, put some hamburgers on it and be done with it, right? Who else? Jeanette? No. Anyone else? Yeah.
I had a client that I'd had for years, and all of a sudden, just the whole dynamic and just the interaction just completely shifted. And my best friend works in my business group. She said something's going on.
Right.
And here we were assuming that we were letting her down, or there was something going on, the service wasn't right. So we decided, you know what? Let's just this weekend, at the same time, she was on the East Coast, let's fill space. Her name was Kelly. Just send her a whole bunch of love. And we did that. She calls for a conference call, gets both of us on the line. She said, I need to apologize. I have been a complete S-head. I just need you to know that I've just been really lousy to you and it had nothing to do with you. You have a new boss here. Things are not good with me and him. I'm having some problems with my daughter at home. And it was just, there were all these external circumstances going on with her. And she was just, it was channeling, it was misdirected, misguided anger, but it was channeling out to us because she knew that we could take it on because we'd become friends. And then all of a sudden things got back to where she says, I don't know what she said. Something happened this weekend. And we didn't tell her what we had done. But obviously that energy through our, we just sending her whole, like you were saying, holding space.
Yeah, it's so important. So important. Yes, sir.
I was just thinking about last night we got back from a trip. We spent quite a bit of time on Highway 17 coming back up from Apache Junction where we stayed. About 45-50 minutes sitting on the highway anyway. We were kind of exhausted. But we're having dinner, so I had this big iced tea there because I'm all worn out. And so I, right in the middle of dinner, goes off over on the table and all over the floor. Calling myself a complete idiot. Totally had no mindfulness, no attention span. You're a complete jackass. Go on and on and on like that. And I stopped for a minute and I go, oh, I was having this wrap that has butter on it and it got on my fingers and I didn't think about it. It
slipped out of your hands.
Slipped out of my hand. It's just an accident. I'm attributing all these.
Was there sugar in it?
No.
Well, then that's what I say. I spill iced tea. Thank God I didn't have sugar in it.
Yeah, we have a machine and clean the carpet off.
It just was
an annoyance.
just an annoyance.
Turning all these hostile comments on myself. Probably not helpful and not necessary, but
I don't know how I used to do it. Like coming up 17, Mike's driving, he's got it down, go through town, you got to go 85. It's like, I never went that fast on the freeway when I drove to work. But anyway, well, thank you for sharing. So I want to read you a poem and then we'll go into a meditation. The poem is called The Dash. I read of a man who stood to speak, at a funeral of a friend. He referred to the dates on the tombstone, we call them headstones, from beginning to end. He noted first came the date of birth and spoke of the following date with tears. But he said what matters most of all is the dash between the years. For that dash represents all of the time that we spent life on earth. And now only those who love them know what the line was worth. For it matters not much. We own the cars, the house, the cash. What matters is how we live and love and how we spend that dash. So think about this long and hard. Are those things you like to change? For you never know how much time you have left that still can be arranged. If we could just slow down enough to consider what's true and real, and always try to understand the way people feel. Be less quick to anger, show appreciation more, and love the people in our lives like we've never loved them before. If we treat each other with respect, more often wear a smile, remembering that the special dash might only last a little while. So when your eulogy is being read, with your life's actions to rehash, would you be proud of the things they say, of how you spent the dash? All right, so let's just take a deep breath, slowly exhale, and another deep breath, and center ourselves. Dear God, we are so thankful to be here together today. Seeing old friends, seeing people we haven't seen for a while, and renewing our energy and respecting and holding dear all those that we love. It was in the daily word this morning that Jeanette read. I think it was the other daily word, I forget. But anyway, it talked about the numbers and how there's something special when two or more gather. I am here. We are so blessed to be on earth. And this beautiful valley are the mountains. For we have crisp air. We have beautiful people that we love and work with and live with. And the great bounty of the fall. We are so blessed and so thankful. So in the silence, let's just ponder on how blessed we are. So as we come back with an attitude of gratitude, we say, thank you, God, for I lack nothing. I am bountiful. I am abundant. And I am loved. Thank you, God. Amen.